Welcome to the Voter Interest Project's candidate interviews for 2023. I'm Alan McPheeters, Executive Director of the Voter Interests Project. Our mission is to provide voters with the information they need to make informed decisions about government, candidates, and ballot measures. Our focus is local. We cover Island County, its cities and towns, and various special districts, as well as the representatives from the 10th Legislative District. The 2023 elections are local and nonpartisan. We are covering 44 elective offices on this year's ballot, including mayors, city councilors, school board directors, and commissioners for hospital, port, fire, parks, and cemetery districts. 67 candidates filed for these offices during filing week in May, and we've invited all of them to do interviews for you. We also have extensive coverage of these elections and the actions of these government agencies on our website, voterinterests.com. The following interview is with Jessica Oz, who is running for re-election as the director for District 2 of the Oak Harbor School District. We provided a list of potential questions to the candidate in advance of the interview. All right, well, today is Wednesday, September the 20th, and we're here with Jessica Oz, who's running for the Oak Harbor School Board in Director District 2. I think it's 4 of the districts, or 4 of the directors are elected by district, and the 5th one is an at-large. Is it 3 or 4?
So we're all actually technically at large.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. My understanding was that you had to live within a certain district, but you're elected on an at-large basis.
Not that I may be wrong on that, but I think it is. I think we're all at large in this district. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's harder to find candidates if you're too particular about where they're living.
Yes, exactly. The hospital district just got rid of their director districts for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
I'm jumping ahead of myself here.
You're fine.
Welcome to the Voter Interest Project.
Hey, thanks. Happy to be here.
Good. We for those who are just tuning in, we got started a little late, some technical difficulties on my end, mostly operator error. But we're rolling now. Where are you today? Are you at home, or are you in an office? Or
I'm at home, and I live just south of Oak Harbor.
Oh, very good, very good. So let's start out with a little, stage setting biographical information about you. Are you married or are you single?
I'm married. My husband is a lifelong would-be islander. He's a paramedic for the island, and has been a paramedic and EMT and firefighter for his whole career.
Outstanding. That is important work.
Yeah.
Do the two of you have children?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Nope.
Very good. Now, your husband, you said, was raised here on Whidbey. How about you? Are you from here, or did you move here?
I'm not from the island. I'm from Maple Valley, so I'm from Washington, but moved to the island about 8 years ago now for a job. I was a librarian at the Oak Harbor Public Library, and that's what brought me to the island.
Very good, very good. Now, so did you, I'm going to ask this of all the candidates, more important here in Oak Harbor, did you serve in the military at all?
Nope, did not serve in the military, but my family's, I got a lot of family that served.
Very good, very good. Now, are you still a librarian? Are you still working at the public library?
No, so I was a librarian for many years. I worked in public libraries and prison libraries, and now I've switched to doing community-based substance use prevention. I wanted to be able to work from home and have a little bit more flexible schedule, and so I'm the Oak Harbor Youth Coalition coordinator right now.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, nothing like working from home. My day job is for a company that does business intelligence software for very large law firms. I've got one client in state. Everybody else is community.
Yeah. No, I enjoy it.
Work if you can get it.
Yeah. So
very good. So now, do you have other community organization ties beside the coalition, or?
Yep. So I also serve on the board for the Whidbey Island Conservation District. And then I do a lot of partnerships, sort of with the coalition, but also outside of the coalition. I own and run a horse boarding, training, and lesson facility, and we we work with Big Brothers Big Sisters to do programming to get kids who wouldn't be able to ride due to, financial constraints, able to have them do writing lessons. We also partner with an equine assisted therapy program, and we do equine assisted therapy at our farm. So we do a lot of different things. I wear a lot of different hats.
Outstanding. Nothing like multiple streams of income.
That's well, and just, being engaged is the biggest part for me. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Now, so if I remember right, you were still with the library when you got the appointment to be on the school board.
Correct. Yeah, that was 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And I noticed on your website that you are currently the longest serving of the
once we kind of go through the election, I will be. I'm not right now, but Director Hallahan isn't running again. So if I'm elected, then I will be the longest serving.
That's interesting to me. We had such long-term directors over in the Stanwood Camano district. They're having a lot of turnover this year too.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason? I mean, obviously it's kind of an odd case in Oak Harbor because you had that election a couple of years ago, and then both of the people who won those races moved out of the district.
Right. Yeah. So we've it's not anything, due to the position itself, just more circumstantial. I mean, Director Mann couldn't say no to a job in Hawaii, and Director Diamond got a great opportunity in Southern Washington. So we miss them terribly, but just circumstances.
Yeah, of course. What made you decide to become a school board director?
So originally, I was fairly freshly a resident of Whidbey Island, working at the library. I was doing a lot of work with the school district as a librarian. And I just saw this as a really good opportunity for me to be more involved in my community, learn a bit more about the district, and have a different perspective than what was on the board currently. And then running again 2 years later, it's a big learning curve to be a school board director. And I felt like I was at the top of the curve, or getting to the top of the curve, and really understood the position a lot more and wanted to be able to continue that work. And that's where I'm at now too. I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I also have a very good idea of what we need to do going forward. And so being able to continue to do that work and advocate for our students and our families and our community is really important to me. And I want to be able to continue to do that.
Very good. Very good. There's so many things going on at schools generally, but what do you think is the key challenge that needs to be addressed in the Oak Harbor School District?
I think one of our biggest challenges, and it quite frankly was a challenge before COVID, but certainly post-COVID, is academic achievement. Our test scores are not where they should be. Test scores aren't everything, as we know, but they are a benchmark that we need to pay attention to. And we have students who are struggling for a lot of different reasons, and identifying ways to support them, not just one way. There's a lot of different learning styles, a lot of different situations. And so being able to really pinpoint how we can support our students in those ways and set that high bar for academic achievement is really important. And it's something that we need to continue to work on and have accountability for.
That's a problem, not just for Oak Harbor, but really nationwide. And we've been seeing reports for, as I'm in my mid-50s now, and as far back as I can remember, about how performance has been dragging. And by doing some research on the district a while ago, you've got a 93% graduation rate, and yet you've got below 50% grade proficiency in a lot of subjects, math especially. I don't know that you know the answer to this, but I'd be curious if you do. Why are we graduating students who can't perform at grade level?
There's a lot of science surrounding that, and it's been shown that holding students back has quite a detrimental effect on them long term. However, just pushing students through and graduating them or pushing them through grade levels when they're not ready also has a cascade effect of on our scores, right? If a first grader is advanced to second grade and doesn't have the proficiency at first grade, then that just is a cascade effect as they move through school. And so when it comes to our graduation rate, the 93% is not just for your graduation rate. It's not just our kids who go to high school for the traditional 4 years. It also encompasses, our virtual learning academy students who take longer to finish. That's our overall graduation rate. Our actual graduation rate is a little bit smaller for the 4-year students. But we also really try to get kids to graduate. If it takes 5 years, then it takes 5 years, right? Or if it takes alternative learning environments, then that's what it takes. And our staff is very committed to meeting students where they're at and helping them cross that finish line without sacrificing learning, right?
Right.
But some students just need different types of learning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't want, I have some thoughts about schools, not really germane to this kind of discussion, because really what we're focused in on is your campaign and what you want to do on the school board. So we might have another conversation. Are there certain parts of being a director, certain responsibilities in the director role that you're more interested in or more focused on? Is it policy or curriculum or budget or something like that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to remember that the role of a school board director is quite narrow, right? We are in charge of policy and budget, and we may have interests outside of that, but we don't have a whole lot of influence truly on things outside of policy and budget. So we can set district goals. One of the things that we're doing this next year, and we've started the process, is creating a new strategic plan. That's something that we can sort of spearhead as a board. And I'm really excited about that. I think it's important for us to have very clear goals that are created not just by the administration team or the school board, but they're goals that are created with communities, with our community, with students, with parents, with all of the voices that are at the table. That's essential for us as a district. We haven't had it. Our strategic plan has been outdated for quite some time. And so being able to really do a deep dive and identify what our community sees as priorities, what our staff see as priorities, what our students see as priorities, and being able to bring that together into a really crystal clear strategic plan that we can kind of put everything else underneath is going to be really important. I'm very excited about that.
So how does that work? Because you were just saying that you have some influence or control over budget and policies, but the strategic plan, I would think, would be very centered on
so we are
performance.
Yeah, so we are actually not, there is a representative from the board on the planning committees for the strategic planning, but we actually are taking quite a bit of a back seat on that. It is very much driven by our staff, our parents, our community, our students. Student voice is a big part of the strategic planning process. So we gave the stamp of approval for a strategic plan to be done and for that process to be started. But we are actually not the key players in making that happen.
Okay.
So we are able to make some bigger decisions on like giving stamps of approval for things like that to happen. But we aren't super involved in those actual processes, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. I understand what you're saying, but now I'm left a little confused. And actually, we monitor 4 school districts in Highland County: Stanwood, Camino, Coopville, South Whidbey, and Oak Harbor. And I don't think this pertains as much to the Oak Harbor School Board. So, I might be just misreading it, but
sure,
Coopville especially seems, we read through their agendas every week, and it's, here is a slew of new policy changes largely put forward by the Washington State School Directors Association.
Yeah.
And it seems like an enormous amount of Coopville's time is spent on these little tweaks that I'm not an expert by any stretch, but it doesn't look like a lot of them are super meaningful changes. So
Sure.
what if your principal levers are on budget and policy?
Mhm.
First of all, I guess I don't really see it. I have to admit, I don't watch all the school board meetings.
I I
When
don't blame you.
but we cover 30 odd meetings a month with, from county commissioners down to cemetery districts. So it's a little time constraint. And I have a
Sure.
day job. But I guess the first question is, when you get a set of policy change proposals from WASDA,
Mhm.
um, do you generally adopt them as presented, or do the group of you review them, make changes, agree, disagree? How does that work?
Yeah, so it really it depends. WASDA puts out policy revisions that are high priority, where this is a change that has to happen. And then there's policies that are suggested. And so our admin team goes through the policies and presents them to us, and they work a lot on the changes, and we work on them too, but we have the final kind of stamp of approval on whether we're going to adopt policies or not. We have certainly tabled policies that have caused, or proposed policy changes that were not required, that caused a lot of controversy. And we've said, the language is good as is, right? If we don't change it if it's not broken.
Right.
So we have some leeway there, but there are policies that come from WASDA that we have to adopt. And we can, have discussion, and we can push back if needed, but school districts and school boards are constrained a lot by mandated things from the state.
I,
So
I have a little sense of that. I used to be on the Oak Harbor Planning Commission, and we had
okay.
that was back when the Planning Commission had final approval on many kinds of proposed developments. We had a development come before us. It had a lot of pushback from the community. And after a lot of testimony from the public, we had a vote on it, and it got voted down.
Mhm.
And then the planning director at the city said, okay, well, you certainly have the power to vote it down, but you have to have some kind of a path forward from here with this. And we ended up reopening the questioning and passing it, largely because we felt we didn't really have a lot of choice in the matter. Is that kind of like what you're seeing with some of these changes from WASDA then?
Yes, yes. I mean, school districts and school boards, are required to follow state mandates and state policies, right? And so yeah, there are things that we have to do that come from the state that we don't really have much choice in.
Right.
We can have good discussion about it. We can talk about how it, the impacts that it has, and potentially, how are we going to mitigate impacts of a policy change in our district. But yeah, there are certain things that we can't say no to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we did I moderated a candidate forum hosted by the Republican Women of North Whitby back in July, I guess. It was not too long before the primary. And one of the questions that the women put forward that I thought was really interesting, we asked of Will Smith, who's running for seat number 5, who do you see as your primary constituency? Is it the students? Is it the staff? Is it the parents? Who, who gets the priority in those kinds of discussions?
That's a great question. And I think that the only answer really is that it's everyone, right? Like everyone has the priority. The perspective of students is vital. The perspective of parents is vital. The perspective of staff is vital. The perspective of our community partners is vital. Like there's, we, in the last year, the district has created a hashtag of One Oak Harbor. And the goal of, the idea behind that is that we are all in this together. And it's essential that all of those voices are heard and given the same weight as any other, and only together can we make decisions that are for the good of everyone, right?
Sure.
You know, so
Okay, so then that pivots to one of the hot topics that came up for the
sure,
past year,
yeah,
which was that the students in the drama club at Oak Harbor High School wanted to put on, I think it's called the Laramie Project, which is a play about the murder of a gay man in a community and how the community responded. And the principal decided that that was not appropriate for that age group and for a school to put on. Two of the students came and entered public comment before the school board, and there was some kerfuffle in the newspaper about how the board didn't really respond in any way to those students. First of all, was the decision the right decision that the principal made?
You know, I can't speak to that as a board member, right? So as a board member, we are again, it goes back to policy and budget, right? Those are our purviews. And so the decision of administrator to have a play or not have a play is not something that we have any impact over. That's the building administrator, that's the superintendent that oversees the building administrator, right? And so that decision we didn't have any impact over one way or the other. And then when it comes to the students, coming for public comment, I mean, we love it when people come and give public comment. I mean, that is one of the only ways really that we hear from our community in board meetings. And so the fact that those students came and had the bravery to speak up and talk to us was amazing. But our policy is also that we can't respond to public comments. That is a policy. And so what we try to make clear in that, we try to, before people do public comment, is we try to make that clear that the board can't respond, but that someone from the district will follow up with those students. And that's what happened, right? Afterwards, our superintendent followed up with them, other staff followed up with them. So we definitely had, the conversation was continued just outside of a board meeting, and not with board members, right? Because that's not something that we can get involved in.
Not your gig.
Right, exactly.
I find one of the reasons I started the Voter Interest Project is that I used to be the chairman of the Island County Republican Party, and people would come to me and say, when are you going to get the Oak Harbor City Council to do X, Y, or Z?
Right, yeah.
Well, it's not really my lane.
Exactly, yeah.
Aside from that I'm not an elected official, those seats are all nonpartisan. I don't have any.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people really struggle to really understand when it comes to the school board, is that it is a nonpartisan position, and it's important that in this position that we listen to all voices on both sides of the aisle. Like we should, and absolutely, like, it is very important for me that it stay very neutral and nonpartisan. We're in it for the kids. We're not in it for a particular agenda, right? But it's important that all voices are heard, and that concerns from, different parents and different students and different staff, like all of that feedback is valid and valuable. And we really try to take all of that into consideration when we're making decisions, but we also are very limited in our lane is quite narrow, and I think it's hard for people to understand that, especially people coming in new to a school board position or wanting to run for school board, is they have these ideas of coming in and making a lot of change in areas that the school board has no real influence over at all. And so I think that's something to really be aware of. Especially in this position, because it is about the kids, and it's about education, and it's about supporting our students more than anything.
Yes, but there are children, not mine. I don't have children, but there are children, and so it's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah,
I understand the point you're making.
Yep. So
you're on the ballot in 2023. Assuming that you win your election, you'll be on the ballot again in 2027. I'm not asking you to commit to running but if you're running again in 2027 and you want to make the case, hey, I did a great job as a director in Oak Harbor, what's the benchmark? What's the accomplishment you'd like to be able to point to, say, here's why you should reelect me. Here's what we did that made a difference.
Well, I mean, for being on the ballot in 2023, one of those benchmarks is I'm a huge advocate for student voice, and I'm the one who advocated very strongly to increase our student rep positions on the board. So we went from 1 to 2. We involve our students much more in our in all things, right? If they're, so say they're, I mean, and this has happened multiple times where there's a policy that has some controversy. We've now started going, into the schools and sitting down with students and asking what their perspective is on it. And I think that's not something that's done very often, and certainly hasn't been done up until the last few years in Oak Harbor. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'm excited to continue that work. Our kids are our future.
I certainly think that, there's an abundant amount of research in, say, factory settings that if you ask the line workers and assembly lines about things that can be improved in the process, they generally have better ideas than everybody else.
Yeah.
But I had a little pause. There's a news story floating around a few months back that in British Columbia, there was a movement to lower the voting age to 8 or something like that.
Okay.
And it gives me a little pause because, in a sense, you're asking for the opinions of the least experienced people in the room. So I certainly, I don't want to discount students. They're the ones who are right there going through it all. But how much weight do you give to student opinion when they're not very experienced in life?
They may be the least experienced, but they're the most impacted of the policies that we put forward. So,
well, that's certainly true.
So what, when it comes to student voice, are those the only voices that we listen to? Absolutely not. But having that perspective added to all of the other voices that we listen to and that we put a lot of weight behind, I think adding that student voice component is also really important.
Fair enough. I have one more thing that I thought especially you would be the right person to ask. Oh, right. Because you're the first incumbent I've talked to on the school board so far this year. I like to talk to Lynn Goebel and Nikki Tesh and all that. Sure. Hasn't happened yet. So you were there when those bond measures were on the ballot and failed. And happily for the school district, Senator Mazzal and the legislators, and then that big chunk of money from the DOD. But there's a lot of bond measures coming on the ballot at school districts and other districts, and a lot of them are not doing very well. So what lessons do you draw from those two measures not passing?
Well, I think it was kind of a multifaceted reasons why they didn't pass. I think the first one was too complicated. It was really hard to explain to people, exactly how it would work. It took us months to understand it with being in hours-long workshops. So, I think it was not very user-friendly. And despite, efforts to make it more so, it was a big ask and hard to explain break it down easily, right? I think this last bond, we increased our yes votes by 10%, which is pretty impressive. It didn't pass, but it came a lot closer. We simplified it a lot, and really focused on those 2 DoD schools. I'm pretty heartbroken that the community didn't go for an elementary school at Fort Nugent. We have 42, I think, maybe more at this point, 42 portables in our district. That's enough portables to make an entire school of kids, an entire school. And so, and portables don't have bathrooms. Our kids are out in the elements. They're not great solutions for long term. And So I'm heartbroken that our community didn't go forward with it, but I'm very proud of our district. Our district staff rallied tremendously to apply for the state grants that gave us the matching funding for the DoD, the federal money. So we had an 80% grant from the DoD that we had to get 20% match from the state or from our community,
Right.
or we'd lose that 80% funding. And so our district staff did a heavy lift to get that match funding, and it's unprecedented as we're going through the first phases of the process for getting contractors lined up. People aren't really sure how to even navigate the funding, right? Because it's not a traditional school funding, because it's never been done before, at least in Washington. And so I'm very proud of us for being able to pivot when we didn't pass the bond and still be able to build these 2 new schools. It's an opportunity that we will never have again, and that we've fought for almost 15 years to get. And so, but people were burned out. The economy is not great. Everything is expensive. Having tax dollars go up, they wouldn't have gone up. But regardless, it's still the perception of an ask in the community. And, the last 3 years have been hard. There's been, having kids at home during the pandemic was really challenging for a lot of families. There's still we're still recovering from that. And we see that in our academic slide in the last couple of years. Our students are still have learning loss, and we're still battling that. So there's a lot of things where I think, people just weren't in a position to want to say yes to yet another thing, right? But I'm hopeful that our community will see the value in having our kids in buildings that aren't falling apart here soon, because there is a huge need. And I'm so grateful that we were able to come up with the funding to make sure that our 2 schools on DoD property are getting rebuilt. That's incredible. But again, we have an entire school's worth of kids in portables, and I would like to see them in an actual building. Yeah.
How confident are you about the estimate of how much construction is going to be? Because we just saw that the clean water facility go way over budget, and down in South Woodby, they have that aquatic center they put on the ballot, and at 27 million, and then it zoomed up to 37. They had to trim things back. Are you confident that you're going to be able to keep the costs to what
we have to? We have to. There's no ability to go over. So yeah, we have to, and it will be an absolute challenge, right? The cost of materials continues to rise, the cost of everything. So it's concerning, right? We don't have a crystal ball. We can't, we can't see if lumber is going to skyrocket or all of the moving pieces that go into building. But that's one of the reasons why the minute we got the green light, we started pulling together, construction teams and putting out all of the bids for that, because the sooner we start, the more, of a better idea we have of keeping the costs to current market prices.
I turned off my timer because I saw we were going to.
It's okay. No, you're fine.
We could probably talk for another hour about. I find all this stuff fascinating.
All the things.
We should probably just wrap it up with this. So, if people want to know more about you and your campaign and what you'd like to do in a new term, what's the best way for people to reach you? Is it on Facebook or a website or?
Yep, I have my website is up. Gosh, and I'm gonna have to look it up to make sure that I have the right address.
I guess, but we will pass. I think I have the addresses for those things. But which one is the one where you keep things updated more frequently?
So the website has been updated pretty frequently. People are always welcome to email me. It's Oz for 4 with a 4, ohsd at gmail.com. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm really passionate about this work, and it's it's not an easy job. It's a lot of hours with no pay. And you do it for the kids, right? You do it because this is something that you feel strongly. This is an area where my professional experience, I've worked with kids and in nonprofits my whole career. So my perspective is something that I feel adds value to the board. And I'm very involved in this community in a lot of different ways. And I enjoy the work as hard as it has been over, especially the last 3 years. COVID was not easy. But I'm still committed to the work that we do, and I'm committed to continuing that work. And there are things. The district it's a good district, right? But there's always things to improve.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to continuing that work.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll put all of that contact information on the, when we upload this to YouTube and put it on the website and all that, so
Awesome.
be able to find it. Really appreciate your taking the time. This has been just fascinating. So
absolutely. I was happy to be here. Thanks
Great.
for inviting me.
You bet. Thank you so much. Take care.
All righty. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching our interview with Jessica Oz, who's running for director in District 2 at the Oak Harbor School District. We invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, available in 4 local editions: Camino Island, North Whidbey, Central Whidbey, and South Whidbey. The newsletter arrives in your mailbox every Monday morning with news and events from your part of Island County. Subscribe to our newsletter at voterinterests.com/subscribe. And look for more of these candidate interviews as the election season continues. Thank you and good night.